James, Dr. Jester here. I wanted to go over your biblical themes assignment presentation and just talk to you briefly about some things that I'm seeing here. First of all, you do have a good title page. If we go to this particular page, 24-point font is what all this appears to be in. That's the smallest font you should use in a presentation. Now, you do have some items down here below in your speaker's notes. Using speaker's notes is always extremely helpful. Now, here's where I start out, where I'm a little, well, I'm questioning some of what I'm seeing here. Number one, you're supposed to detail 3 themes, discuss those themes, and then provide a summary of those themes along with an audience. First of all, I don't see an audience listed anywhere, so I don't know who you're presenting this to. So provide an overview of who you would present this material to and describe them. If you look in the rubric section, you'll see that that is one of the items you'll be graded on, is providing the details on the audience that you expect to present something like this to. In an actual presentation, it needs to be large enough that people can actually see it from a distance. Now, some of the bigger issues then, there's not this 3 themes category. You've got 6 listed here. Next page, you quote the scripture, and then you discuss themes in that scripture. So you're pointing out some scriptures. What I would prefer you do is, for example, servanthood as a theme of missions. That's perfectly fine. Coming up here, suffering for the gospel. Very few people talk about that. But it seems like that mission work and suffering go hand in hand. Very few people talk about that. It's not something that's listed and discussed too much, but it is an inherent component. I would love to see someone talk about that. Translating the Bible is a huge one for me as a mission theme. Jesus is infinitely translatable, and Jesus is throughout the gospel. So the gospel is translatable. We want people to hear Jesus in their own language. We want people to see Jesus as one of them. So those are important themes. So you need to limit these to 3, discuss those 3, and don't try to provide too many themes. We're not looking for that. Narrow it down to 3 or 4 and discuss those. And then throughout your document, you're pointing forward to other scriptures. You're looking under scriptures and looking at themes under those. So again, go back to picking out 3 themes that you want to discuss. Discuss those 3 themes in 2 or 3 slides each. Provide a summary at the end, and then your endnotes and reference section. Now, I have another problem that we really have to discuss that is the major issue here. When you're going through this document and you're putting forth some ideas, if those ideas belong to you, wonderful. If you borrow them somewhere, you have to notate that. So when we go over to Turnitin, the initial Turnitin report tells me, sorry about that, I'm getting some craziness going on there. Let me get back to my view. Okay, so going back to my view here, I go to Turnitin. The initial report says your similarity count is approximately 45%. What does that mean? It means that you have 45% of your presentation is material that is found elsewhere, either on the internet, in a book, in a journal. It's found somewhere. And then if you look at the Turnitin report, everywhere you see a colored section, like this right here, all of this is material that you got from that source down there. That's great. The problem is, if you don't place each one of these items as a borrowed quotation, if you don't place that in quotation marks, that's considered plagiarism, even though you list the source of that information down here, and even though you say it up here. An academic person is going to look at that and think that you're just summarizing those points that he's making, when in fact you're borrowing the actual words. So anytime you use the actual words of a source, that includes scripture, that needs to be in quotation marks. Without the quotation marks, it's considered plagiarism. So similarity is 45%. When I deselect the quotations and make quotations part of that, material that is borrowed and outside sources, 72% of your document comes from outside sources. Unfortunately, I can't offer a grade at 72%. It has to be closer to 20%. Normally, I provide a warning between 20 and 30% if the material adds up to that. With that high of a similarity quotation percentage, I cannot. So what that means is, again, you've got a scripture quoted. You have to summarize those instead of quoting them. Here, again, material that's from outside sources, Bible or elsewhere. You want to use some quotes, certainly, but you can't make your whole document that. Your document has to represent your thoughts, using these to outside sources to reinforce that. But the majority, 80% of the document needs to be in your own thoughts, your own words, summarizing your sources as much as possible. So unfortunately, I'm going to have you revise this and resubmit that. You'll need to get that done in about the next 4 to 5 days. Normally, there's a 10% deduction on this. Now, I don't think you meant to do this. You're working hard. You're trying to get all this together. So I think this is just unintentional. It's a learning process for you. So I'm not going to deduct any points this time. However, if it were to happen again, if you did have some quotes that weren't correctly quoted according to the style guide, and you've got to follow that style guide. And if you have a document that has too many quotations in it, and we have to revise that, then I will deduct points for that. So I'm going to post this video on YouTube. I'll give you a link for that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, okay? Blessings on you, sir.